What I have described to you is the new ideal, the new model for human beings, whose ideal is to develop every possible quality and virtue. Surya Yoga includes it all: adoration, wisdom, power, purity and activity, selflessness, light, and the sacred fire of divine love. Hi, I am Michael from Denmark.
Words from within. Welcome to Omraam World.
I am sitting here with a book that made all the difference in my life. And I'm going to explain to you why. It's called the Splendor of Tiferet, the Yoga of the Sun. And the sun is probably the most important thing in my life and has been my spiritual anchor throughout many, many years. But I would like to start a little earlier, when my spiritual journey began. It was about high school, and I was very much looking for something more than the ordinary life could offer me. So quite soon I began to study books, went to the library, found books, and the first book I found was a book by Vivekananda called Raja Yoga. And I read it and I was hungry, and started meditating, doing all these breathing exercises, pranayama, and what other methods was talked about in the book. Then after a while I came across another thing, Sufism, which was a more mystical approach to spirituality. And it was part of that helped me open my heart more. And it gave me a good insight into a different kind of meditation, more like a contemplative meditation. After that, I spent some years doing Tibetan Buddhism, and that has lots in common with the teaching that I'm going to share with you in a few moments. Lots of the practices, visualizations, the use of mantras and so on. So that taught me a lot about that. And then I also taught and practiced Tai Chi and Qigong for a long time, which is intimately connected with Taoism. So as you can hear, that I have been through a lot of different teachings, religions, philosophies. And at some point I stopped and thought, well, you know, if you get to the core of all of them, they're talking about the same thing, but in different languages. And that was when I began looking for something that was more, let's say, universal. Something that was not dependent on culture or language or anything else that is particular to people. I wanted to find something that was truly universal. And fortunately for me, I had a very good friend. And one day I visited her, and we were sitting talking in her living room, and suddenly my eyes caught a book on her bookshelf. And I went over and took it out, and it was the book called Towards a Solar Civilization by Omraam Mikhaël Aïvanhov. And when I started reading that, it was like coming home. It was exactly what I had been looking for. So I quickly read through that book, started practicing the sun meditations, we call them Surya Yoga. And of course I was hungry, I wanted more. And that was what led me to an even bigger book, which is the one I have here, the Splendor of Tiferet, or Surya Yoga. And yeah, it was a transformative experience reading it. It was like, as I said, coming home on you could say, on a macrocosmic level, but it was also on a very inner level, something that changed me deeply. I felt that the more I connected with the sun on an outer level, the closer I got to my own source, my own higher self. And the more I learned how to love as the sun loves. The sun taught me how to be luminous and inspire people. The sun taught me how to live a life full of vigor, activity, and that has been so precious for me. It has actually been an anchor throughout many, many years of my spiritual journey. Every time I experienced problems or challenges in my life, it would be the sun that would put everything into perspective. I would visualize the sun, I would feel the sun, and suddenly what seemed so big and insurmountable before became much less, and I was able to actually distance myself a little from the problem, and in that way being able to see what it was about. And I found that a very simple method for me worked every time, and that was to introduce the sun into the situation. So as you can hear, it has been a revelation for me on so many levels. And I am sitting at the moment in the garden of the Master Omraam Mikhaël Aïvanhov. And this morning we had a magnificent sunrise. So I think what better place than this, what better time than this, to share something with you that is very precious to me. Before I read the chapter that I have chosen, there's a short quote I want to read to you from the Master that shares his sentiments towards the sun and also mine. He says, "How can I help but talk about the sun? It is so beautiful, so pure, and so powerful, so full of treasures. How can I help talk about God's most perfect creation?" How can I help to read the chapter for you? So the chapter I've chosen is called Surya Yoga. It's the first chapter of the book, and it's a general introduction to the whole teaching about the sun. Surya Yoga, the sun, center of our universe. I am sure you have already noticed that in the morning, when the sun first appears over the horizon, a deep hush falls over the whole of nature. Every living creature is silent and attentive, as though it were meditating deeply, waiting to receive something from the rising sun. For the space of a few minutes, the earth, animals, insects and trees, even the birds are silent and peaceful. The birds are awake, flying about, singing joyfully before the sun gets up. But just as it's about to appear, they pause in their song and keep quiet for a few moments. In these days, yoga has become a popular subject of discussion. In fact, I have sometimes talked to you myself about all the different types of yoga that come principally from India and Tibet, but also from China and Japan, Egypt and Persia. All religions have their own form of yoga, even Christianity. Yes, Christians have always practiced adoration, prayer, contemplation, devotion and love for God. In fact, these are the foremost characteristics of the Christian religion. And in India, this is known as Bhakti Yoga, the yoga of devotion, adoration and spiritual love. This form of yoga suits certain temperaments better than others. Some people have different gifts and qualities and need to express and develop them in other ways. The paths that leads to the Creator are without number. For those who are given to study and philosophical reflection and like to work with the mind, there is the yoga of knowledge, Jnana Yoga, the way to God through the use of one's intelligence. Others have no philosophical or scientific bent and do not feel the slightest desire to fall on their knees in adoration or contemplation, but they have willpower and abundant energy and the desire to work and serve others with selflessness. For them, there is Karma Yoga, the yoga of good works, of achievements on the physical plane, of duty to be done without hope of payment or reward. Karma Yoga is the yoga of freely given, altruistic service. For those who want to control themselves and master their instincts and impulses, the tendencies of their lower nature, there is Raja Yoga. Through concentration and self-control, they seek to lose themselves in the Almighty. They become the kings, Raja means king, of their own inner kingdom. Crea Yoga is the yoga of light. This is the yoga of the great Babaji, and it consists in thinking of light, of getting to know and understand light and colors, and of drawing them into oneself and projecting them all around. It's a magnificent way to work. Hatha Yoga is for those who want physical exercise, who enjoy adopting the postures, or asanas as they are called. They twist and turn and roll themselves into bowls, stretch out, lie flat on their stomach, stand upright, fold their legs behind their head, and so on. These exercises are based on a detailed knowledge of the psychic centers which are activated by the different postures, and they require a great deal of will and perseverance. Agni Yoga is the yoga of fire, in which you think of fire, work with fire, and kindle the fire within. Since fire is at the origin of the whole of creation, Agni Yoga is yet another path to God. Then there is Shapa or Mantra Yoga, and that is the yoga of the word, the Logos. It consists of pronouncing certain formulas or mantras at certain specific moments, a certain number of times, with a certain degree of intensity. Words possess power, and those who know to use that power can obtain beneficial results. And now I want to talk to you about a form of yoga which surpasses all others, the yoga of the sun. This form of yoga was well known in the past. The Greeks and Egyptians practiced it, as did also the Persians, Aztecs, Mayans and Tibetans. But nowadays it's almost abandoned, especially in the Western world. The name Surya Yoga comes from the Sanskrit word for sun, Surya. This is the type of yoga I prefer above all others, for it includes and sums up all others. Yes, why not combine all the different types of yoga into one? The new human beings who want to grow and develop in every sphere of life must act with absolute selflessness. This is Karma Yoga. They must love, seek and adore God. This is Bhakti Yoga. They must meditate and practice concentration so that they are able to reign over themselves and their population of cells. This is Raja Yoga. When they are sitting perfectly still and meditating, or executing the movements of our gymnastics, or dancing the when they mentally surround themselves with light and color and work to build up a brilliant, luminous aura, they are practicing Crea Yoga. When they fix their mind on fire, calling on it to burn away all their impurities, this is Agni Yoga. They are practicing Shapa Yoga when they strive to control their every word and to be constantly on their guard, so as not to say anything that might cause divisions between people or infect them with doubt or despair. They endeavor, on the contrary, to use their faculty of speech to create new life. Finally, when they focus all their attention on the sun, loving it and seeking to unite with it, seeing it as the gateway to heaven, the manifestation of God, they are practicing Surya Yoga. What I have described to you is the new ideal, the new model for human beings, whose ideal is to develop every possible quality and virtue. Surya Yoga includes it all: adoration, wisdom, power, purity and activity, selflessness, light, and the sacred fire of divine love. Each of the other types of yoga helps to develop one particular aspect of oneself, whereas Surya Yoga activates all our psychic centers. When we unite ourselves with the sun, we are bound to get results, for we are uniting with the central power that governs and animates all the planets of our universe. This is why I say that all the other kinds of yoga, which were once considered so wonderful, and which are indeed still wonderful, will one day be replaced by Surya Yoga, which surpasses them all. For when you work with the sun, you're working with God. There are people who have worked successfully with this yoga, and you cannot imagine the light and lucidity they have gained from it, the sense of wonder that fills their lives. In fact, I can tell you that the sun has revealed things to me that no one else could ever have taught me. No book can give you what the sun can give, if you learn to relate to it in the right way. This is very easy to understand. So let me give you an example. Suppose that you're reading a book, one of the best books, very best books, but it is winter and you catch cold and have to go to bed. Well, the best book in the world cannot warm you, can it? Or imagine that it is evening and the light fades until you can no longer read. Here again, even the most inspiring book cannot give you light to read by. And finally, suppose you have become anemic from reading too much. Once again, your books cannot restore your vitality. But the sun, on the other hand, can give you heat, light and life. It is obviously the most beneficial of all books. Nobody really realizes how important the sun is. People only think of the material, commercial advantage it can offer, and they are a million miles from seeking any spiritual advantage from it. Even religious people, I should say, are quite unaware of this aspect. The sun is the source, the father of everything, the prime cause. It is the sun that engendered the earth and all the other planets. This is why we find the same elements on earth as in the sun, the only difference being that on earth they are condensed and solidified. The minerals, metals, precious stones, plants and gases, all the dense or subtle bodies to be found in the ground, water or air, or on the etheric plane, come from the sun. Yes, all medicines or quintessences extracted or manufactured by chemists come from the sun. To recapture our purity and light, we have to return to the center. You will soon see how the precepts of all religions converge in this quest for the center, or put symbolically, the quest for the sun. As soon as we decide to return to the center, something begins to change. You will remember my descriptions of the rota that I saw years ago at the Luna Park fairground in Paris. People would climb onto this circular platform, which would then start to spin, and gradually, as it span faster and faster, the centrifugal force became stronger, and those who were far from the center lost their balance and were thrown out towards the outer edge. Those, on the other hand, who were standing close to the central axis, remained safely in place, laughing at the plight of the others. This is an excellent illustration of what happens when we move away from the center. And the further away from the center we are, the less able we will be to stand up to the chaotic forces of disorder, and little by little we will lose our inner balance and peace. When we move closer to the center, on the other hand, the movement is different, and we find ourselves flooded with a great sense of peace, calmness, and joy. When we go out in the morning to contemplate the sun and draw strength from it, when we try to enter into it and at the same time draw it into us, we are moving away from the outer fringe, back towards the source, in peace, light, freedom and union with God. The sun is the center of the solar system, and the planets move harmoniously in it, around it. And it is this harmonious movement of the planets around the sun that must be duplicated by our own selves. But before this can be, we have to discover our own center, the sun, God, or the spirit within us. When we achieve this, every particle of our being moves in rhythm with universal life, and the sensations and states of consciousness that this produces in us are unutterably glorious. Every single being, without exception, needs to return to the source. And every single being understands this differently, of course. But the fact remains they all seek God. Those who spend their time in eating and drinking, those who have an insatiable appetite for sex, those who are only interested in money, power, or knowledge, are all looking for God. The only thing is that they all seek God in their own way. So, the very first thing to do is to realize the importance of the center and what great changes will begin to occur within you, even without your knowing it, and as soon as you start to seek it. The nearer you get to the sun in spirit, soul, thought, heart and will, the nearer you will be to God. For on the physical plane, the sun is the symbol and the tangible, visible representative of the deity. All those abstract, remote names by which people refer to God, source of life, creator of heaven and earth, prime cause, almighty God, universal soul, cosmic intelligence, can all be summed up in the one concrete, familiar reality of the sun. Yes, the sun can be seen as a summary and synthesis of all those sublime, abstract ideas which are beyond our comprehension. The sun is the gateway, the physical link, the medium through which we can unite with God. So take what I have said about the sun today and treasure it as an extremely important truth. Make a note of it meditate on it, and never forget it. The more you work with this new form of yoga, which is still unknown or despised, the more effective you will find it. It will give you a much better grasp of many things and will help you to fit your actions to your new understanding. Try to understand that when you contemplate the center of the solar system, you are restoring order to an identical system within you. You are reinstating your own inner sun, your spirit, in its rightful place, and enabling it to regain command. I have often given you the example of how children behave in the classroom when the teacher is absent. They spend their time squabbling and getting up to mischief. But as soon as the teacher arrives, they scurry back to their desks and listens attentively to every word he or she says, looking as though butter would not melt in their mouth. The same is true of a group of singers or a troop of soldiers. When their leader, the conductor or sergeant major, is absent, they all go their own way. But as soon as he or she arrives, they get back into place and begin working as one. Now let me give you just one more example. Suppose a friend you love and respect knocks on your door, just as you and your family are in the middle of a violent quarrel. What do? You try to forget your grievances and look as though nothing was amiss. "Oh, do come in. How lovely to see you. How are you?" and so on. You do what you can to make your friend feel welcome. You even start smiling at each other, so that he or she may never guess that anything was wrong. Well, why not make the same use of this law within yourselves and bring the sun, the warmest, most luminous, most vibrant visitor you could ever imagine, into your home? If you do this, all your fractions, quarrelsome inhabitants, will instinctively, magically slip into place, because they would be ashamed to be rude and unruly in front of such an eminent friend. When a riot breaks out inside you, therefore, and your inhabitants start arguing and pulling in different directions, you can get them to calm down immediately if you begin to pray with all your heart. Peace and joy will flood into you, because you will have brought in a friend whose mere presence is enough to shame your inhabitants into silence. You must surely have experienced this already many times. If you pray to this friend even more fervently and persistently, and ask this friend to stay with you and never leave you again, to dwell permanently at the core of your being, peace and light will reign within you forever. The presence of the sun brings light, but it also brings warmth. Human beings shiver with cold all their lives. They complain that they are dying of cold, that no one loves them, that they need friendship and affection, and they look to a man or a woman for the warmth they need. The poor creatures think they will be warmer without another human being in their arms, but they will never find true warmth in a human embrace, for as soon as they relax their grip, they feel the cold even more and start shivering all over again. But when the sun appears, it warms and vivifies human beings to such an extent that, symbolically speaking, they have to undress. Then they can be seen as they really are, in all their beauty and splendor. Then they can be free, for that is what freedom is, to be fully alive. Thank you very much for listening. Just before we finish, I would like to share a little prayer with you. It's a prayer that I have from another one of Omraam's books called A New Earth, which are the methods and exercises that he recommends. The prayer is normally said in relation with a candle by lighting a candle, so it's to the flame. But I have adjusted it slightly so that it suits my practice with sun meditation. So I say it often when I watch the sunrise. And the prayer goes, Beloved Sun, symbol of divine life, symbol of divine wisdom and love, please enter into me and impregnate all the cells of my body, so that one day I may come to be like you.